Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today is day 9 of the Lenormarch. So I'm quite excited, and you can see I have a mess here. One of the things that I've really been enjoying about Lenormarch is I've been seeing all kinds of people who have been making decks, modifying decks, finding their first decks. You know, lots of creative things going on, right? I've made my own deck, which I absolutely love, called the Hope Lenormand. And so it's been great to see that, just to see everybody's decks that they have, people adding stuff to their wish lists, figuring out what decks for them. And one of the questions that came up was, I didn't cut that one very good now, did I? There we go. One of the questions that came up was mini decks, because mini decks are a little bit harder to find, and sometimes they are specialty decks that are a little bit more expensive. And so I'm trying to, throughout this month, like, just give people tips and ideas as much as possible. This is my Piatnik deck, which is a relatively easy deck to get a hold of. It is cheap. I want to say I paid under $10 for it. I know this is hard to get in like New Zealand and places like that, but other than that, I think it's a relatively easy deck to get a hold of and a relatively cheap one. And then it can be trimmed down, so that would have probably started, I think it was smaller than a regular Lenormand card, but still pretty, decent size. And it comes down to a really great size. It's larger than a mini, but more in height, not so bad in width. So that's one option. Another deck that is quite easy to get a hold of right now is the Pixie Astounding Lenormand. People have found this in Barnes and Nobles, and look at the size this makes trimmed down. Here's a mini. It is just a little bit wider than a mini and not too much taller. So that to me is an amazing size that I'm really happy with. Now with the Pixie's Astounding, plus then look at the back, how cute is that? There's two ways you could trim this. You could trim this down to leaving the titles on if you want the titles, right? Then you could take your little corner rounder, trim your corners, and voila, you have a nice, probably close to the Piatnik size. Yep. Slightly thinner and just a hair taller. So you could definitely take this Pixie's Astounding Lenormand down to a really nice size. I don't need the names. If you can't tell that's a book, it's time to get glasses versus needing to have the names on there. So I'm taking it all the way down, but you could leave that on there if you wanted to keep the titles on, or if you wanted the playing card associations. I don't find the playing card associations, necessary, especially for beginners. If I want the playing card associations, I will, look them up, or I could even write them on here if I choose to do so. Or I choose to, because I have quite a lot of decks. So if I'm doing a reading where I want to have the playing cards on it, I will simply pick a different deck. But this makes a fantastic little deck. But look at how cute that is. Oh, that's adorable. So it's even smaller than the little Piatnik. So I'm really excited about that. I'll leave this Mr. Clouds out because today is about clouds and the tree. And I do apologize. I think I said this in another video. I know this backing is gorgeous. Trust me, I adore it. But it's not really conducive, I guess, to this kind of video. But I'm kind of in the middle of going back and forth between a walkthrough of the Victorian Romantic Tarot, and I don't want to keep pulling it up because I have to kind of adjust things when I do that. So we're kind of stuck looking at this particular background. So let's zoom in about a bit because we don't need to be up quite so far away. So let's go ahead and find. So we have done the rider, right? We have done the, did we do the ship? Yep, we did the ship. We've done the clover. We've done the house. Hello, house. Hello, house. The tree is coming up. The house. All right. And we just need the clouds card for this deck. Always at the other end. Isn't that how it always is? It's always, look at, it's, oh, wait, where is it? I think I pulled it out and then I probably shuffled it into something else. That would be my luck. But I find no matter what side you start from, oh, there we go. I was looking down, just looked at the boat. Okay, so we have done the rider and the clover. We have done the ship and the house. And today, oh, you can't even see those. So we've done those. And today we are going to do the tree and the clouds. Now, I particularly like clouds that have a side, dark side, light side. Now this deck, let's take a peek, give a couple of examples here. This deck has it top and bottom. Right here. So we have the light and the dark, but we can still do the card above and the card below, but I do prefer, and so when I have a deck that doesn't do it the way I normally like to, I just say to myself, right is light and left is dark, and I don't really think too much about it. It doesn't throw me off after you just kind of pick a direction. Like even this, I tend to see the rider, I like the rider to go the other direction, but that's okay. You just got to be flexible and just go with the, either go with the direction that the card you're using is, or just follow the direction. If it's going that way, look to the rider. Look to the direction the rider's going in. I'm seeing what these clouds are. I can't. Yes, this cloud has a cat in it, which I'm not fond of, but otherwise I do love the deck. But we do have more of a dark and light, you know, dark to the top and lights at the bottom. Similar to the other one. And then Pixies I do like because it is, you know, quite clouds here and clear sky here. It's pretty clear which side would be the biggest clouds and which side is the least clouds. So, but this is the deck. Oop, that was very decisive, wasn't it? Okay, I need to get my... Okay, so first we're just looking at our little white books or the handout that I gave you. And the basic idea of the tree is life, well-being, and health. Those are kind of the three basic keywords. Remember, we're not trying to go super deep into keywords this month. We're trying to just grasp the basic idea of the card and run with it. Now, there's other people doing videos going much more in depth, which is fantastic. That's something that I would do later on after this month is over, is probably go through each of the cards. But for this month, my personal goal is to just not give too much information, but just give enough so that you get an idea and you're not getting overwhelmed by keywords. This is very slow paced, so in terms of timing, this would be a slow timing, right? It takes a long time to grow a tree, especially a mighty oak tree. I don't know. I'm not great at knowing those kinds of things. Now, clouds is about confusion, darkness, oppression, is misfortune. The dark side is said to be lasting longer, and the light side is a shorter period. I also sometimes see there's problems here, but it's moving to the light in this direction. What's the card after it? What might lighten the clouds? This card, when touching the clover, can actually reverse the meaning of the clover traditionally. And so Now, when it's not near each other, it doesn't do anything. It's only if it's literally touching each other that the clouds can oppress. So the clouds can really take just about anything and press it down, because it's technically a negative card. And I'll have to make sure that we go through positive and negative cards as we go along. So, you know, the rider's positive, the clover's positive. Some are neutral. The ship is neutral. I don't trust what I have written here because I have my own feelings on some of these things. The tree is, I think, traditionally neutral. The cloud is a negative. So we'll need to, I'll go through all those. I'll make a note to go through those tomorrow. You know, what are the positive, negative, and neutral cards, so that we can, you know, have a clear idea of that. But the clouds, that's definitely the negative one, and it has the most impact on the cards that are around it. So when we're reading these cards, we can talk about, now the tree is also, if you read for health, I do not do readings for health for clients. If somebody asks me for readings about health, I refer them to a doctor because I'm not a doctor, and so I don't read specifically for health issues. However, I do read for a sense of well-being, and if somebody has health problems who is being seen by a doctor, I will do readings around, you know, the fallout of having health problems and trying to kind of get everything else in balance as much as possible while doctors and medicine and things like that are taking care of the actual health problems. But I don't read to diagnose a health issue. But this is traditionally the card in which they would do that. So if you were to have the well-being card, the health card, the sense of well-being card next to the clouds, then you would have that idea of depression, of not having a sense of well-being, right? So this would be, and I think truthfully, you would kind of read this the other way as well. Because if we had so we have, okay, our sense of health, well-being. Well, what about that? It's depressed, like it's down. It's not doing so great, right? And it's on this side, so you know it's probably a long-term something they've been struggling with for quite some time. When we switch it the other way, we have a sense of we have a depression and oppression that is in some way affecting somebody's sense of well-being, which in a sense is the exact same thing. However, it's on the light side. So this is something that's shorter. This is something that may be coming to the end of it. We may be starting to see a shift towards the feeling of well-being, starting to reassert itself. We might look to the card on the other side of here to see how we can continue that path towards feeling better. So the sides that the card's in are very often important. Now remember, let's say we have the clouds for this one. Okay, you still read it the same way. If it's over here, we know that we have an oppression affecting the health and well-being, but it's going to be around a little bit longer because it's on the dark side. Whereas if we have it over here, we have that idea of depression or anxiety or oppression going on that's affecting the well-being, but it's on the lighter side, and so we know that it's rather short-lived. It's on its way out, and we might look to see what's on the other side to see how we can continue it down that path. So that in that case, you're paying attention to your pictures. Otherwise, as I said, because I know how I prefer my clouds, because I worked so long with the Piatnik, I just kind of mostly, I'll read a lot of things to be, dark is right and light is left. Or right is light and dark is left. Right is light. See, it makes sense. Right is light. It rhymes. So I tend to do that regardless of what the picture says sometimes. It just depends. But that's why where we come into the fact that directionality is an aspect. Now, not everybody uses directionality when we're using Lenormand or Kipper cards. Kipper cards have a lot of directionality that is in place. You don't have to do that to start. You can just kind of say to yourself, okay, clearly we have well-being in clouds. We have some depression that's going on. We have some issues, but it gives you a little more information in terms of how long this may be lasting. So it gives us a little bit of more information. But you can just look at these two together on either side and say we have problems that are affecting our sense of well-being, right? So there we have the tree and the ship. In terms of timing, like I said, this is you know, this is going to take, this is slow growing. So this is not something that's going to happen quickly. And the clouds, I don't think it was traditionally as a timing cloud, or a timing cloud, a timing card. So there we have the 2 cards that we're going to be looking at today. The question that we have with the tree and the clouds is, what is something that has clouded your sense of well-being in the past, and what did you do or are doing to overcome that? Well, that's an easy that's the easy combination for me, right? Because you all follow my channel. You know that I'm dealing with grief. I've also dealt with Michael, my son died when he was 23. So I did live with severe chronic illness, his severe chronic illness and life-threatening illness his entire life. And so chronic illness, dealing with long-term pain for him, trying to deal with those kinds of issues that come in a long time. 23 years is a very long time. Chronic illness is a very serious, no matter what it is that's causing it, whether you're the person who's dealing with it, which is obviously the worst end of that spectrum, or you're a person who is a caregiver. Long-term illness and chronic illness is so incredibly debilitating. And so if you are in a situation in which you are long-term chronic pain, chronic illness, life-threatening illness, or you are a caregiver, please give yourself some grace. Give yourself space. Allow people to help you. It is an extremely exhausting circumstance because there is no ending. There is no end to it in sight, and it is the end to it in the case of Michael and his entire life, because he, really wasn't supposed to live. He's not going to live out the weekend. He's not going to live out the month. Take him home. He's not going to live out the year. It's only got a couple years. It was constantly giving timelines on how long he was going to live. And when you live under that kind of sharpness, in all reality, the end to that is going to be not a good thing, right? The end, because there was no cure, there was no way it was going to randomly wake up and everything was going to be wonderful. So there was no end to it, and that is an extremely exhausting thing. And I know that people can get tired of hearing about this on this channel, but it's a very important topic for me. And because we did have, the clouds and the tree, our sense of well-being, I really want to say to anybody out there who is dealing with long-term illness, with chronic pain, who is a caregiver and or a loved one of someone who is a long-term illness or chronic pain, that my heart goes out to you. It is a long and arduous path that needs much grace, and you need to nurture yourself and allow other people to nurture you, because it's a long haul. And the truth of the matter is, or the sad fact is, the lesson that I learned over 23 years is that most people, now there are diamonds there's diamonds in the rough, there are gems to be found along the way, but most people by human nature have a short attention span to long-term things. When there's a major surgery, when there's something major that happens, people rally, but it's the day-to-day grind, the day-to-day getting through, the day-to-day pain management, the day-to-day sleep management that becomes exhausting, because people aren't rallying behind those days, or they're there for the big things, but the long haul in between days are rough, and you need to give yourself grace. You need to ask for help when you are exhausted and in need, before you're exhausted, and you need to allow, there's usually people that are trying to help, and that sometimes you just aren't seeing them because you're so tired. And so, keep your eye open for people who are trying to help and allow them to help. It's a grace for them. I truly believe that. People have taught me that lesson throughout the years. The people that did stick around forever, they taught me that lesson, that it's a grace for them as well. That ability to stick with somebody and support somebody in the long haul is a it's a grace for them. It's something, it's a blessing for them. As my mother would always say, don't steal somebody's blessing. That's a famous mother saying, you know, if you want to try to talk somebody out of trying to help you or give you something, she would tell you you're stealing somebody's blessing. So remember that and reach out to people and allow people to help you when they will, because that is a blessing both for you and for them. So little splurt out there to make sure people you know, just kind of shout out for, you know, reach out. And if you know somebody who is chronically ill and who is or is caring for someone who is chronically ill, please reach out to them. Please send them little notes, call them up randomly, and drop by with a you know, a box of tea and cookies. Send them a little card saying you're thinking of them. The road is long. It's an endurance run, and little things that you wouldn't think matter, like a little note, a box of tea, you know, just a call out of the blue, those things matter. They matter more than everybody in the waiting room in the massive surgeries. Those little things along that long stretch of the lily's stem, that is the stuff that that makes life easier to live. So, okay, I know. Everything, you're always going sad. I know. I'm so sorry, but that's important. We did get the tree in the clouds, so it's important. We have to go with the cards. See, that's what we love about Lenormand is it doesn't pull punches. It doesn't just talk about happy things. It's not an affirmation deck, right? The Lenormand cards, not an affirmation deck. The Lenormand cards are very, very much cards that are about the being down in. These are the working class cards. These are not fancy. You know, tarot cards were expensive back in the beyond, and so these aren't things that people would have. The everyday common people would have at their disposal. Playing cards and Lenormand cards and these kinds of things. These were down in the trenches, and so they are not really to be discounted, and they certainly don't pull their punches. And it's one of the things I really love. There's a very swordsy feel to Lenormand cards to me, and that's probably why we get on so well. But let's just take a look at a couple. So I'm just gonna flip this over. So let's say somebody came and said, I feel like I'm under clouds all the time. I'm having a really rough time. I can't really see my way out of it. You know, this is what I'm struggling with. So I would find the clouds. Now we have 3 here, so I'm going to go ahead and take 3 and 3. And take a look here at what we can see. These are the dark clouds over here. So we have this winding path. And we also, which is the snake, this can be a winding path. Oh, I'm not watching my viewfinder very well, am I? Here we have, you know, the snake can be a winding path. It can be, depending on how you read, it can be a deceitful woman or somebody who is untrustworthy. I tend to see it it's not a straight shot. This has been a difficult road that isn't a straight road. There is, because we're looking at depression, we can look at 2 things with this. There may be a lack of stability. Maybe see these a little bit in shadow, so to speak, and a lack of stability, or it could be work. So some of the depression and things that are going on, the anxiety, the heaviness is being caused by a work environment, right? And the key to success, to raising up these clouds, is going to somehow tie in with work, whether that may be changing the work environment, something that needs to be changed within the work environment. That might be what we look at over here. Oops, I got a little extra one here. If we look to the light side and say, okay, how can we start to move away from that? We see that loyalty, friendship, relying on friends, reaching out to friends, right, is going to eat away at what's wrong. So if we look at the foxes there, because we're talking about the clouds, I'd be more inclined to look at the foxes saying, something may not be quite right. And so the mice are going to eat away at that. How? Well, if we rely on friends, that's going to have to start to eat away at that. There may be a friend at work that we can rely on, that we can lean on, that we might say, okay, you might want to, who are your allies at work? Who is it that you can go to? Not to mention, we can have a smart friend here when we're looking at these two cards, by themselves, but then we're going to be looking over here. But if we look to this and say, okay, somebody that's a friend, but somebody who knows about the work situation, somebody who can advise us, because oftentimes the fox is saying, yes, there might be something wrong, so pay attention. I often will say, okay, do you need to talk to a lawyer? Do you need to talk to a doctor? Do you need to talk to a real estate agent? Do you need to talk to a professional? What professional might you need to talk to really make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's? Lots of times that's what the fox comes up for me. And so I'll say, okay, look for the people that are around you. Look for, this is going to help you lighten. We're going to trying to shift the problems to the light side. And so that's kind of in a quick nutshell what I might see from these particular cards to help in a particular situation, right? So we can go ahead and lay the whole grand tableau out and find the tree. It's down here in the essence line, so that sense of well-being is quite important. And we're going to see that they are on a journey towards stability with the house, right? And that they need to move towards their destiny. They need to find what it is that inspires them and move in that direction. I might look at the present line too here. Or if we were looking at why are they feeling depressed, then we would go to, it's centered around themselves if they're the woman. So that, I always kind of go to the corner for that kind of bullet point and then can go on to read it. And then that's all you have to do. You don't have to read everything in a grand tableau. You can just look for those specific cards, but it will get you comfortable with finding it and seeing where the cards are lying around it. So there we have today's look at the tree and the house. Interesting tips as well as a little bit of lecture. Talk to you later.